Dear students, welcome back to my class. So now we are moving to the detail of rabbit skin. As we know that rabbit is a mammal, so its whole body is covered by hair. Here in rabbit, the whole body is getting covered by a thick, elastic and hairy skin. That we all know that, right? It serves, what is the function of the skin? It serves a protective, sensitive and waterproof covering all over the body. Generally, the rabbit skin consisting of two different parts, that is an outer epidermis and a middle, or the just below the epidermis you can see another layer that is called the dermis. So outer epidermis, which is actually ectodermal in origin, and the middle or the inner dermis, which is mesodermal in origin. So beneath this dermis, you can also see different kinds of glands like sebaceous glands, then subcutaneous glands, etc. So the glands are seen just below the dermis. Okay, so we can divide the skin into three different layers: an outer epidermis, middle dermis, and inner subcutaneous layer in which the glands are found. Let's move to the detail of the epidermis, that is the outer layer. I told you that epidermis is the protective part which is formed mostly of squamous epithelium. So we can say that this is the part of epidermis, this whole part up to this, starting from this and extending up to this region. So this is generally consisting of three different kinds of layers. So the outer layer is called the epidermis. It is the protective part which is formed mostly of squamous epithelial cells. And this is multi-layered in nature. The epidermis is multi-layered in nature and consisting of two different layers, then outer horny layer and an inner germinal layer. This is the horny layer and this is the germinal layer. These two layers constitute what? Epidermis. So come to the horny layer. The horny layer generally consisting of three layers, that is stratum corneum, stratum lucidium and stratum granulosum. So these three layers constitute what? Horny layer of epidermis, which is generally followed by another layer that is called a germinal zonal stratum malpighi. This germinal layer or malpighi layer generally consisting of two different layers, that is called stratum spinosum and stratum basale. So the stratum spinosum and stratum basale generally constitute what? The germinal layer or stratum malpighi or malpighial layer. So this is the part of epidermis. So let's move to the detail of each layer. The first layer is called a stratum corneum. This is called a corneous layer, which is representing the most uppermost layer, and it is highly keratinized, thin, flat, dead, dry as well as non-nucleated in nature. Okay, here you can see in this stratum corneum there is a higher concentration of keratin material. So higher concentration of keratin is deposited mainly in the first layer, that is called a stratum corneum. This corneal layer generally provides protection to the underlying part, which generally preventing the water loss. Okay. Then this is followed by the stratum lucidium. This is a lucidium layer, that is stratum corneum is followed by stratum lucidium or lucidum. This is a translucent layer which is in which the cells are actually refractile as well as shiny in nature. This is consisting of elidin, which is a derivative of keratohyalin. Okay, this is consisting of a material called elidin, which is a derivative of keratohyalin. That means keratin means it is one of the most important pigment of most of this kinds of epidermal derivatives. So that is called the stratum lucidum. Then stratum granulosum. This stratum lucidum is followed by stratum granulosum. It is a granular layer which is generally consisting of flat and diamond-shaped cells. So this is called stratum granulosum, in which the cells contain granules of keratohyalin. Okay, here you can see in this stratum lucidum there is a derivative of keratohyalin that is called elidin. Here you can see strictly the material that is called keratohyalin. then which is followed by stratum spinosum and the stratum germinativum. This is actually the layer of stratum malpighi. Okay, the stratum spinosum is this layer, and this layer is consisting of several, these are generally several cells thick. That is consisting of different cells which are generally hacked together and forms that much thickness, and they generally consisting of a polyhedral shaped structure. They are called prickle cells. So prickle cells are generally found in the stratum spinosum. Then this is followed by stratum germinativum. This is a Malpighi layer, and this generally consisting of only a single layer of columnar cells. This particular layer undergoes repeated mitotic division for replacing the loss in the superficial layer. So if there occurs any kind of injury, these layers may be damaged. So whenever the layer is damaged, its damage is generally repaired by another cells, that is called those cells which is mitotically divided from this stratum germinativum or Malpighi layer. And this stratum germinativum contains specialized cells which is called melanoblast. So melanoblasts are generally found in this particular layer. Then another peculiarity of this layer is that it generally consisting of an enzyme called dopa oxidase. Dopa oxidase is very much important for the synthesis of melanin. So the synthesis of melanin generally taking place in the stratum germinativum. So that's all about the multi-layers of what? Epidermis. Then comes to the middle or the layer which is generally found just below the epidermis, that is called the dermis layer. The dermis layer is actually the principal part of the skin which is consisting of dense fibrous tissue. And into this dermis, you can see the blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerve fibers, muscle fibers as well as pigmented cells. When compared to the epidermal layer, the epidermis is devoid of all these kinds of cells. But the dermis contains only these kinds of blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerve fibers, and all different kinds of tissues are generally merging into this dermis. Then in this nerve fibers, I told you that the dermis layer is consisting of the nerve fibers. The nerve fibers generally ends in small rounded bodies which is called sensory corpuscles. So these are the sensory corpuscle cells of what? Here you can see that these are the sensory corpuscle cells. Okay, so what does mean by this sensory corpuscle cells? The sensory corpuscle cells are nothing but the nerve fibers which is found in the dermis generally ends in small rounded bodies, that is called sensory corpuscles. What is the function of this corpuscles is that it generally act as cutaneous receptors or the receptors which is found in the skin. It is generally concerned with acting the changes like touch, pressure, pain as well as temperature. So these kinds of changes can be easily recognized by means of these sensory corpuscles. Then in addition to this, melanocytes or melanophores are also present. Dermis is also getting divided into two different layers, that is called a parietal layer and inner reticular layer. So these areas are called parietal layer, that is outer layer is called the papillary layer or outer papillary layer, and the lower portion is called actually reticular layer, inner reticular layer. The papillary layer has many outward ridges, that is called sensory papillae. So papillae-like structures are generally seen associated with this what? This papillary layer is generally associated with the many sensory cells called dermal papillae, and this pushes into the sensory papillae generally pushes into the epidermis. It is generally consisting of sensory as well as vascular papillae. Sensory as well as vascular papillae are seen over in the outer parietal papillary layer of dermis. Then this is followed by the reticular layer. It is generally forms that is starting from hair root, hair pulp, speculum, etc. Actually, this generally forms the reticular layer. It forms the main bulk of dermis, generally consisting of dense network of connective tissue which is permeated by blood vessels, lymph vessels, nerve fibers as well as muscle fibers. So that's all about the epidermis as well as the dermis part of the skin of rabbit. So I hope you understood. If you have any doubt, please do in the comment section. Thank you.